before, presumably before the 28th, the absolute deadline, would, given how, and it essentially stood, could we infer that you would come back to us before our June 24th meeting and say that the recommendation of HBRIC is to not proceed with the project?
You could, well, clearly we won't be coming to you on June 24th if the decision comes out on June the 25th. We have a board meeting on the 19th, I believe. If the decision has come out before the 19th, we will consider what our options and what recommendation we should make to council then. It's not necessarily a slam dunk that it would be a decision not to proceed. It might be a recommendation that there's some sound grounds for appeal. We will consider our options, as I said to Councillor Barker earlier on, and we will come back to you with a recommendation when we have had sufficient time to form a sensible recommendation. That might not be to your 24th of June meeting, and it will certainly be to the one after that, if we need that amount of time.
Mr. Barker.
I just want to make an initial comment and say thank you for the briefing day. I want to go back to the point you made about speaking to us when we were over the road at the Napier City Council, a meeting which was to hear a presentation from Deloitte's, a meeting in which we're not allowed to take notes and use pencils and so on. I want to say to you, I don't consider that a briefing. I consider this a briefing. This is a good briefing, and I welcome the strong exchange of views and opinions. This is, I think, really good, healthy. Could I just then come back to the timeliness of it? According to the own council's decisions, it might be time to review them. We're supposed to be making a decision at the end of June, but it seems to me highly likely that there are going to be many things which are unknown at that point. Given that the board is relaxed about making its decisions over a longer time than HBRIC is, do you think we should also, as a council, take a bit more time to make its final decision?
I think that's a question that you should ask of your staff and consider in the light of when we come back to you with a recommendation.
Further questions?
Just a point of clarification, this might be helpful. I mean, I've got some advice here that says that the one plan is a limit at 0.44. Now, are we dancing on the head of a pin here as a target, a limit? Is a limit or not? So I'm going to defer to you.
But my understanding is that it is not a limit in the one plan, and that was a matter that was decided in the court.
Thank you. Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. The one plan does have a figure of 0.44. That is not a limit that applies today, or as soon as the plan took effect. It is an objective that, in other words, a desired end state to be met. Resource consents are issued to applicants in those catchments for them to undertake their current activities. But any further than that, in terms of progress towards a 0.44 objective, we are not aware of how. I think it's partly because of lag effect and things. It's probably too early to say what impact those resource consents would be having.
Well, could just say I've heard so many different stories about this. I'm going to go to Horizons. I'm going to ask them for a briefing about it, and I'm going to find out for myself exactly. So some people tell me it's a limit. Some people tell me this, that, and I've got a different version today. We can't operate in an environment where there are so many variations of the information.
If I could help with that, Councillor, I intend to take the whole council down to see them after this decision comes out. Absolutely.
For the avoidance of doubt, Councillor Barker and others, let me read to you paragraph 399 on page 126 of the Board of Inquiry's draft decision. After a good deal of consideration, the Board has decided that a DIN limit of 0.8 milligrams per litre should be set for water management zones 1, 2, 3 and 5. In the subsequent paragraph 400, in arriving at that limit, we note that the current DIN level at Red Bridge is 0.751 milligrams per litre, in accordance with the numbers I have shown you. This indicates to us that a DIN limit of 0.8 milligrams per litre is not out of touch with reality. Paragraph 401, obviously we have strived to arrive at a limit that will achieve environmental values without putting farmers, orchardists or horticulturists out of business. The limit we have adopted, and it goes on many, many, many paragraphs to use the words limit, which has a defined meaning. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, perhaps given some of the things that have been raised here about the staff's inability to properly interpret the information in the one plan, perhaps we could have circulated, or at least a reference to the High Court decision on that, because surely that is definitive.
Right. Getting close to the end. Any other questions? You happy to move that we receive a report? Councillor Dick, we have a seconder, and Councillor Scott, you wish to speak? Councillor Scott.
I'd like to thank Dr. Pearce for a very clear, very well researched and being able to put his finger on the information that we were questioning today in a very clear manner. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's been a very helpful session.
Thank you. Well, I wouldn't normally note this, but Councillor Graham, you've just said publicly that you do not understand this and you fully back your comments to date. And I just want you to be aware that that's what you've said, because that is a fact.
What I said today was, that this is not our field of expertise and we don't have the understanding of this that Dr. Pearce has.
But then you still back your comments.
Back what comments?
That you totally back everything you've said to date in the media.
No, and I also said, I do, and I also said that we have taken other advice, and on the subject, and we have taken other advice. I personally have taken lots of other advice, and that's a matter of us weighing it up and making a decision, a judgment decision. So,
I think I heard Councillor Graham say that he'd been faithfully reported in the media.
That's right.
okay. I have.
Can I ask Councillor Graham, who is the we that he keeps referring to?
Who is the we you keep referring to?
My wife and I.
Thank you.
Other speakers, Councillor Belford.
I would like to just add a number 2 to the, if I understand what the motion is, it's simply to receive this as a report. I would like to add a number 2 to that. Try it. That Council agrees to convene a one-day public symposium to consider the implementation of Plan Change 6 as finally decided by the Board of Inquiry. The symposium would be balanced with speakers from differing perspectives on the plan change, including the agriculture, horticulture sector, the environmental community, and local practitioners and experts on land use and farming practices in Hawke's Bay. The forum would aim to foster a shared understanding of what Plan Change 6 requires and to identify approaches to best meet those requirements.
Seconder that hasn't spoken.
What? Second.
No, I just I think that we have heard a briefing that is presenting an outcome that is worrisome to HBRIC, but it is an outcome that we may be dealt with, may stand, may have more flexibility by the time it emerges, it may not. But I think it is time for us to shift some of our attention to getting on with living with a different regulatory regime for the Tuki catchment, and that along the way, some of what Rex is referring to in terms of hearing from a bit broader spectrum of informed players as to what is achievable in terms of meeting these requirements and how they might be met and so forth, is something that we should apply ourselves to sooner rather than later, but certainly after the final decision is on the table, so we know what we're dealing with. And so I think what I have in mind is something that is kind of modeled on what has been done on oil and gas and GMOs and so forth, where there were informed people, wide range of opinions. There are folks who feel this plan change could be lived with just fine, and there are others who obviously don't. I think we need more exposure to a broader range of broader range of opinion, I guess, as to what is achievable here in Hawke's Bay if this plan change stands as some would like to see it revised.
So we're looking at the amendment here, which is receive the report and count. Any other speakers? Pardon me? Okay.
Nearly done.
You want me to do it? No.
Mr. Chairman, I'll briefly speak against it. I just believe it's premature. There may be a place for it somewhere further down the track, but we need more certainty, and we certainly don't need more confusion at this point in time.
As I said, the point in time is after we have a decision.
Let's just. So that's the recommendation there.
No, don't worry about it. Oh, yeah.
Councillor Scott.
Chairman, whatever form and I will speak against the proposed amendment, whatever form the plan change takes, then the land users have to be compliant with them. It's not up to public opinion or public ideas or different perspectives. There is a absolutely black and white thing. They must comply with it. So the correct move after the information is anyone affected by it will need to get the most appropriate professional advice. And therefore I cannot see the idea of publicly debating what various people might think Mr. Jones might do on his property or Mrs. Smith might do on her property. It's up to every individual landowner affected to seek the proper advice from the proper quarters in order to be compliant. Once a plan change is made operative, then they must comply, and it's as simple as that.
Mr. Summit? No other speakers?
Not quite sure why we need to put ourselves in such a mental straitjacket as to assume that there are not very experienced people here in Hawke's Bay who currently advise farmers in Central Hawke's Bay, elsewhere around the Bay, who are recognized nationally and internationally for their understanding of farming practices and best practices. Why we would not want to take a leadership role as a council, pull some of that expertise together that has not yet had any real involvement in this process to date, and say, let's get the best thinking in front of us on how to move the ball forward here. It seems totally commonsensical to me to reach out and broaden our horizons a bit and understand fully what is happening, including here in Hawke's Bay today on farms that are not having any particular problem meeting pretty rigorous self-imposed limits on their leaching and improving their productivity in the process. Why would we not want all farmers who are facing a new regulatory regime to be aware of what those best practices are and provide some leadership in providing that to them?
Thank you. I'll put that motion then. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And against? Lapses, or it's lost, rather. Close. L word.
Point of
Okay.
order, Mr. Chair.
Point of order.
I just want a note of clarification. What is the council's policy on initiating legal proceedings? Is the council's policy that prior to legal proceedings being initiated, they have to come here before the council to make a decision? I raise this with a serious, obviously a very serious point of mine. And
Well, hang on,
also
that's not actually a point of order, but that is a subsequent discussion. Perhaps we could talk about that at the end of the day.
Well,
Yeah.
if I get an answer in the affirmative that they do, I won't move a motion. But if I get an answer in the negative, then I wish to move motion.
You've been a seconder of another motion, though, so you're out.
How does that mean?
What is the affirmative? What is the decision there? We'll have to come back to you. I don't know off the top of my head.
Why can't I move a motion?
You
So I haven't spoken.
It's more around the process around can you move an amendment. So you want needs clarification.
I moved an amendment.
Well, I'm moving new motion or whatever.
It's an amendment.
No,
Of
he
course
can move an amendment. Yes, you can.
course I
Sorry. But you said you wouldn't if you got an answer, is that right?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's.
And can you...
Yeah. Could you just
Well,
We're getting a bit out of shape here, but...
give me some context to your
Can I
question?
give you
please?
my context is this. The Board of Inquiry decision comes out. It's got a mixed bag. Some people don't like it, some people do, whatever it is. But anyway, what I'm concerned about is that the council or HBRIC may initiate legal proceedings in the High Court against the decision. And what I want to know is, prior to that decision being made, does that have to come to council for it to sign off on? What I want to have a discussion about whether or not we do that, because there's a lot of politics in this, and secondly, huge cost. Going to the High Court on something like this is incredibly expensive, and I don't want to see this council committed to a course of action without being signed off by councillors. So if you tell me they do have to come here, then I'm happy with that. Let's have the debate.
So this is obviously a first time we've been through this process with the Board of Inquiry, and potentially as an applicant looking at legal action. In my view, and my advice would be that we would have to come back to council before anything like that was committed to, because of the, as you rightly explained, the costs, the nature of this particular discussion, and all the other consequences that go with it. And similarly, I would also say we would have to, for the same reason, we would have to come back to you if we weren't initiating any legal challenge, but wish to become a party to it as the applicant.
Well, if that's the case, if the minutes just record the assurance by the Chief Executive that any decision on legal action would come back to this council before a decision was made or become party to, I'm happy with that. The minutes record that. I don't know how we get on with HBRIC, because HBRIC would have to do the similar or not. It does, yes.
I think it highly unlikely that HBRIC would take a legal course of action here without having the support of its shareholder.
Thank you.
So we go back to the original motion. The report be received. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Right. Thank you.